Baby, here I go, start the show. Beat on my heart, now about to explode. I'm about to explode. Feel good, what I'm feeling.
Good evening, everyone. Happy Wednesday. This week, Ignite Your True Self is coming to you live on Wednesday instead of Thursday for this week. And I was going to say this week only, but sometimes life happens and you need to shift and rearrange. And so here I am with you tonight on Wednesday. So let me take this opportunity to welcome you to Ignite Your True Self. This is my weekly live stream coming to you on Facebook, on YouTube, and on LinkedIn. And here's the thing, the Ignite Your True Self conversation is all about exactly what the title says. It is about igniting you and stoking up that little bit of fire in you to help connect you to whatever your truest and best version looks like. So I want to welcome you to this evening's conversation. Before I get into the topic for tonight, I do want to take this opportunity to welcome you to those of you who have never landed with me live or checked out the replay of the show or other content that I provide. Let me just welcome you specifically and just let you know that as a result of my personal coaching and professional development programs, I help women and organizations to figure out what is it that stops you from being your true self. Like when you think about what that looks like, goals, dreams, visions that you have for yourself, is there something that gets in the way of you doing that and being that? And so when we figure out what those barriers are, I get even more excited to provide the strategies to help you move beyond those barriers so that you can keep moving forward to that best version. And that's what this conversation is all about. So I want to do a couple of housekeeping things. First of all, I just want to give a big shout out to Target. I was in Target a couple days ago. It is Black History Month. I'm going to share a couple of Black History facts with you in just a few moments, but they have some great Black History t-shirts, sweatshirts, all kinds of things to really help celebrate not just what this month means, but those creators who are providing those products. And so this shirt, don't know if you can see it completely, but let me just zoom in a little bit. It says, beautiful, all shapes and all sizes, all shades. What does it say? In all shapes and all shades. Yeah, let me get it right. Okay, don't want to do a disservice to the creator. So just wanted to share that. So you can check out your local Target to find out what they have in store for you in your area to celebrate Black History Month. And no, I am not being asked by Target to share this information, but it's important to me. So I wanted to share it with you. So because it is Black History Month, listen, I wanted to share a couple of things. I love to hear different facts, new facts that I've never heard before. So as I'm listening and checking in and tuning into some of the podcasts and things that I like to listen to, when I hear something that makes me go, aha, I want to share that with you. So one of the things just this past Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday, no, the Eagles did not win. And yes, that's who I was rooting for. But nonetheless, let me move on. But the best part to me was watching the all women flyover before the game, right after the national anthem. When I tell you that gave me chills, it absolutely just sent a shockwave all through me because I was so excited to see this all female flyover crew. Now, one of the pilots was actually a Black female. Now, I did get her name, and I want to do her a great service to make sure I say it correctly. I may have to come back to that. I thought I took a snapshot of something from off of the internet with her name, so that escapes me, but I will come back. I know her last name is Ngali. I want to say it's Ngalle. I do not have her rank, but I will figure that out. I thought I had it here, and I don't know if I deleted the picture, but it was exciting to see that she was a part of the flyover on Super Bowl Sunday. In addition, speaking of football, Melanie Hobson Melanie Hobson is a successful entrepreneur, businesswoman. I believe she is part of the Starbucks franchise and upper leadership there. But she's also the first Black part owner of an NFL team, the Denver Broncos. So that is a Black history fact that I could not wait to share. And then secondly, I just found this out today that Venus and Serena Williams are the first Black women to become minority stake owners of the Miami Dolphins. So you can look up more information about those amazing women, but I wanted to share that. And especially when we think about the NFL in a male dominated sport, it's nice to see that these women are paving the way for future women in leadership, Black women in leadership in sports. So that is amazing. And so tonight, let's get into the topic for tonight's conversation. Before I do that, I do want to remind you that if you are watching live or if you happen to come back and see the replay, I do want you to use the hashtag Ignite Your TruSelf. That's TRU, no E, SELF, Ignite Your TruSelf. So that way that when you're posting, if there's something that you hear and there's an aha moment that resonates with you and you share that, then please do use the hashtag Ignite Your TruSelf. So that you can let others know what you're up to on this evening. And so tonight's topic is why gratitude is golden. Now, what I realized in preparing for the show tonight is that the topic is why gratitude is golden. And I'm going to be sharing tips with you on how to incorporate gratitude as a part of your regimen, right? But I will be sharing through the conversation, like, why is it golden? Why is it so important? It's pretty much what that means. And so I want to just make sure that you know that you'll kind of hear some little snippets about each. Why is it golden, and what are some of the things that you can do to really own this idea of gratitude? Okay. So here's the thing. So when we talk about this, like what is the problem right now? And I've said this before. I unfortunately will probably continue to say this because there's always something that we need to be mindful of. But one of the things that makes this topic, I think, so important is that there's so much going on right now. And it seems like every week, when I think about the topics, the things that are going on right now around us and within our own spaces is kind of woven into all of these topics each and every week. If I'm really honest and I think about how to make those connections, it's like there are things that are happening that, yes, we need to be mindful of, but we also need to think about how to put some things in a different perspective. Okay. So when we think about all the things that are going on right now, I know that our first instinct is to complain about it, to get frustrated, to just be constantly angry about everything that's happening. And it's a problem because when we do that, we are missing the opportunities to really focus on the blessings that we have around us. Now, I'm not saying this to say that we should not be mindful, that we should not be aware, that we should just ignore everything that's going on and be oblivious. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying in this conversation is that this idea of gratitude will hopefully help you to begin thinking about a different approach, right? How to be intentional about expressing gratitude, and more importantly, the result, the benefit of it when we begin to do it on a regular basis. So I thought that this topic was so important to the point where I actually included it as a chapter in my book. Chapter 8 is all about gratitude. And for those of you who do not know, as a self-help author, one of the things that's very important to me is to be able to share in written form, what it is that we can do to bring out that best version. You heard me say at the beginning of the show, that's really something that is a foundational point in any of my conversations. How do we create the best version of ourselves? How do we do it in a way so that we are the healthiest versions of ourselves? So all of those things are foundational touch points or concepts that you'll hear me talk about. So this is my book, Pathway to Purpose: Find It, Follow It, Fulfill It. And in the book, I talk specifically about this idea of hidden pictures. Now, I may be dating myself, and that's okay. But some of you may remember, and I don't even know if this is still in publication or if they still come out. But how many of you remember the highlights magazines that would come out? I remember highlights, and I don't know, it felt like they would come to the house every day. I know that's not true, but maybe it was, I don't even know if it was once a week, once a month. But in those books, they would have the section, the page for hidden pictures. And and you probably see, even not in highlights books, but there are other publications that put out this kind of concept where there's like all this stuff on the page, and then you've got a list of things that you have to find. Okay. So when I talk about gratitude, I talk about it from the context of looking at something that's so cluttered, like there's all this stuff in our space. Now let me bring it down to something that makes sense. So when you think about those hidden pictures in the highlights magazines or other things that you may have seen it in, and you see all of this stuff on the page, and you're like, well, man, I've got to find these 10 things, and it's so difficult to find because of the way they kind of mesh them in between, and really plays tricks on your eyes to try to figure it out. So when I think about those hidden pictures, I often think about all the stuff that's on our plate. And you think about, oh my gosh, I've got to pay the bills. I've got to go to the grocery store. Groceries are high. Gas prices are high. Our jobs are requiring more of us. Some people are working from home. Some people have to go into the office. There's hybrid. There's traffic. There's family drama. There's stuff going on with your children, with your spouse, your companion. So all of that stuff becomes part of this hidden pictures view. And if we're not careful and we just focus on all the other stuff, then we don't find the 10 things that we are supposed to find on the list. Okay. So when I think about this idea of gratitude, it's really kind of sifting through some of the stuff that's all around us to pinpoint those little things. Okay. So the first tip, when we think about why gratitude is golden, and how can I shift my mindset into really focusing on more on gratitude, the first tip is to think about the simple things. Okay. Think about the simple things. So a lot of times when we think about gratitude, number one, it may be difficult, or it may not be as easy to find something to be grateful for when all we can see is all the clutter in the hidden pictures, right? It's like I see all these things, and you want me to think about gratitude, but all I can focus on is all the craziness in this picture. And I got to drill down on this particular thing. I got to find the hammer. I got to find, the shoe, and then all of those things. So think about it from this context. When you say, okay, well, how does hidden pictures relate to this idea of gratitude? Well, oftentimes we only attribute gratitude when there's something big and something major that's happening. The new job, the new house, or the promotion, the new car, you're getting married, somebody's having a baby. Those are like big life-changing situations. And so you might say, oh, I'm so glad I got that promotion. I'm so glad I got that job. Oh my goodness, I'm so glad that, I got this new car. And so we often make those gratitude statements about those big things. But at the end of the day, gratitude is golden because when you think about those small things, then it helps you to kind of move away from all the chaos on the hidden pictures page. And it helps us to recognize that it's not just about the house. It's not just about the car. It's not just about those big monumental moments, though those are awesome things to be grateful for, but it's those little teeny things, right? When you think about the fact that, oh my gosh, you know what? I woke up this morning. I'm actually able to move around. I'm in my right frame of mind. I can, go run some water and brush my teeth, take a shower, take a bath. I can go fix something to eat. Like, those are really small things that have nothing to do with the monumental moments, right? So when we think about gratitude being golden, it is an opportunity for us to look at the little things that we sometimes take for granted. Hey there, Jaquista. Good to see you on this evening live. She says, I'm listening so hard right now. In the last week or so, I found myself lost in the sauce. And you know what? The lost in the sauce is a good way to frame that, because it is easy to just totally forget about those simple things, right? The little things that sometimes we just ignore, just because it's that easy to only focus on the other big things, right? So the simple things. So one of the things that I will say um, is that, sometimes when we think about ignoring the simple things, it's almost like when we get lost in that sauce, and I'm going to go with Jaquista's reference to that. It's like when we get lost in that sauce, what's happening? It's like we're on this wheel and we're moving constantly and we're thinking about all the things, and it hypes us up, right? It energizes us in a way that leads to stress, that can sometimes lead to frustration, to anger, to being short tempered with people. So getting lost in the sauce, as opposed to coming back and saying, oh, wait a minute, you know what? I have a roof over my head. I have friends, or I have family, or I have things that I can connect to really make me get back to something that feels good. That's something that's simple to be grateful for. Okay. So I'm going to get a little bit more into some other things in just a moment, but just keep that in mind. So the first thing is to remember those simple things. It doesn't always have to be the big stuff. And sometimes, and I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I'll hold it because I'm getting ready to jump into tip number 3, and I don't want to go there just yet. So I'll come back to that. So let me move on to tip number 2. Tip number 2 is to be intentional about expressing gratitude daily. Okay. Now, as I just said a few moments ago, and I'll just tell you part of my practice, and I've got a couple things that I want to share with you in terms of, how you can do that. When I wake up in the morning, one of the things and this years ago, first thing I used to do was turn on the news and, kind of listen to see what was going on. I have shifted the way I practice. So in the morning, when I get up, the first thing that I do is say thank you, right? Is to say thank you because I've opened my eyes. I am moving around. I can put my feet on the floor. I can walk to the bathroom. I can use the bathroom. I have water to brush my teeth, like all of these things. So when you think about, well, what if I just wake up in the morning and I start to practice gratitude? It's like before your mind even goes into, getting lost in the sauce and the rat race, it's like, let me shift to some things that I can be grateful for, like right off the bat. Okay. One of the other things that I do that helps to bring this tip into fruition, being intentional about expressing gratitude daily, is when you wake up, one, you can begin to speak the things that you're grateful for. Number 2, and I've shared this in other forums before, I have a gratitude jar. Okay. So this jar sits on this shelf right behind me. You can probably see it. That's the space that's empty is where this jar sits. So I have cut up little small pieces of paper, just little about this size. I don't know the measurements, but you can judge and you can adjust accordingly. And I keep these slips of paper and this jar right over there on the shelf. So when something happens, something comes up, I write a gratitude and I stick it in the jar. So I've started for the year. I've got some in here. Here's a couple of examples. So over the weekend, Met a friend, enjoyed having lunch on Saturday. Friday, I spent the day like just pampering myself. I had my therapy session, I had a mani-pedi, went to get my hair cut, and all of those things are things that I'm grateful for because those are things that make me feel good. So I wrote them down on these little slips of paper and put them in the jar. I got flowers for Valentine's Day. This is the first year in I don't know how long that I didn't have to buy my own. So I wrote that down that I received flowers, put it in the gratitude jar. And so as things are happening, or even if you're thinking about something, like something made me laugh, or I watched a good movie, or you know what, I popped some popcorn, I had a glass of wine, I sat down and I just enjoyed myself. Or maybe you figured out something. Let's say you had a problem or something that you really couldn't figure out and you got the answer, or you connected with something or somebody that just brought you the solution that you needed. That's something to be grateful for. That's something to write down on the piece of paper, put it in the gratitude jar. So that's just a suggestion on how you can be intentional about expressing gratitude daily. And I will tell you, this jar really helps me to be present, right? To look beyond the hidden pictures, to get out of getting lost in the sauce and really be intentional about, okay, out of everything that happened this day, is there one thing that I can find that I can either write down or I can verbally state how grateful I am for that particular thing happening? Um, the anxiety is getting in the way. Self-care is necessary, but there's no time. Okay. So let me say this. I'm going to challenge you to think differently about time. I'm going to spend a few minutes on this, but this is something that I talked about a few weeks ago uh, in the show, talking about making time for self-care. Okay, so at the end of the day, when we say we don't have time, we're really doing a disservice to ourselves. Okay, because we have the time that we need in order to take care of ourselves. We just have to put the right boundaries in place. And we also have to recognize that our perception of time needs to change. And here's what I mean by that. So a lot of times we think, oh gosh, in order for me to practice self-care, I need an hour, I need 2 hours, I need a half a day, I need a whole day. And the reality of it is, while those are certainly amounts of time that you can use for self-care, it doesn't always take that. Self-care can happen in 30 seconds. Self-care can happen in a minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Okay. So I'm saying that because that's one of the blockers, is sometimes we have this misconception about how to utilize the very resource that is most important and actually most available to us. Okay. So if you have questions about that and you want to try to figure out how to rethink that, then maybe that's a conversation that we can have outside of the show, because there may be some things that are happening that you can realign that will give you the use of time that you need to take care of yourself. That is absolutely important and crucial. Okay. So, number 2 tip is be intentional about expressing gratitude daily. When you think about it, the more you start to do it, the easier it becomes. But here's what's going to lead me to tip number 3. Tip number 3 is about looking for gratitude shifters in the challenging moments. And I want to say this again, because anybody that's listening to this conversation may be saying, oh, well, she's talking about gratitude and she's just thinking everything is just roses and daisies. And no. That's not what I'm saying. Okay. So this tip may be the most important of all, to look for gratitude shifters in the challenging moments. I want to read that again. Look for gratitude shifters in the challenging moments. This is where the hidden pictures piece comes back into play. Okay. So let me give you an example. A few years back, I hosted a women's retreat. And my planning team and I, we're sitting down, we're mapping everything out. And I had set a goal to have 40 women register for this retreat at a wonderful venue. And, we're putting in all the work, doing all the planning, and we're watching the numbers through the registration time frame. And it's just like, okay, a drip here, a registration there. And I'm thinking, man, we're not going to meet this target. And so I really struggled a little bit because I'm thinking, okay, do I cancel? What am I supposed to do? How do we need to shift? How do we need to adjust? And so we went on and on for a while trying to figure out why these numbers weren't changing. Okay. Remember, 40 was the target. I had 7 women who registered. Okay. Now, I was disappointed, but then I said, okay, whoever shows up, then, it's going to be what it's going to be. And I'm going to provide these women with, the experience, and hopefully they get the outcomes that I'd hoped for them to get. So we had originally been scheduled to use one of the larger conference rooms at the venue. And so, once we figured out what the numbers look like, the hotel said, well, we have this cottage that you can use. It's very intimate. It's decorated really nicely. You have, the kitchen is there. So when your food comes in, you really have the exclusive space to yourself. So I get to the venue, planning team and I go in, and I walk into this space, and it was absolutely gorgeous. Now, remember, I said there were 7 women who registered. So as I'm walking through this cottage space, it was beautiful. It was open, high ceilings, lots of light, contemporary decor. I walked over to the dining room area. Now, remember when I said there were 40 women that I was targeting? Only 7 women registered. I walked over to the dining room table. Guess how many chairs were at the dining room table? Somebody can type it in the chat. Take one guess. There were 7 chairs at the table. Now, not only were there 7 chairs, but they were like these high back chairs, almost like, fit for queens. 7 chairs, exactly the number of spaces for the women who register for this conference, for this retreat, right? You got it. You hit it on the head. 7. So in that moment, in that challenging moment, I'm thinking to myself, my gosh, like this, I couldn't have planned it this way. Obviously, I didn't plan it that way because I'd planned for more women. But in that moment, I literally had to stop and express gratitude, because I knew that the way I planned it wasn't the way that it was intended to be. The other part that I had to express gratitude for was after the retreat was over, because it was such a sacred space. It was such a space where women were free to express. There were tears of joy, there were tears of pain, there was laughter, there were breakthroughs, there was fun. That atmosphere was what those women needed. Had I had 40 women as I targeted, that experience would have been completely different. And so I had to think, in my moment of frustration, in the challenging pieces of having to re-navigate rooms and all of that kind of stuff, and being on the hook for some of that, I had to really step outside of that hidden picture space and say, you know what? That wasn't how I planned it. It didn't go the way I wanted it to go. There were moments when I was upset, I was frustrated, I was crying, I didn't know what to do. But I had to think about the fact that it was exactly the way it was supposed to be. That was a moment of gratitude. I actually write about that experience in the book, because it's one of those moments that says, okay, when all kinds of things are going on, I've got to look to figure out how I can pull out something. And you might only be able to pull out one thing when you're in the midst of something that's going on and you're like, oh my gosh. The question to say, is there something in this that I can see, that I can pinpoint, that is going to work better for me than the chaos, than the hidden pictures and all the other stuff that's in the background. Now, you might be saying, well, when I'm in the midst of it, then I'm not, it's not easy for me to see what that gratitude moment is. And I totally get that. So what I will say to that is that sometimes you have to come out of the situation, move past the situation, and then look back and say, well, what were some of the things that really did help? And I'm going to use, my divorce as an example of that. When you're in the midst of something like that, when your family is changing and things are looking different, you might not always see. Now, looking back, I'm grateful because through that process, I've learned to figure out some things about me, what I want, what I don't want. I've learned to grow in, and still learning to grow in, the relationships that have now changed. That's a moment of gratitude, but I didn't see it that way. In the midst of some of those things, it took some molding and some shaping and some tears and some other stuff to kind of move through and say, okay, now I can say I'm grateful for, I'm grateful that my children are healthy and we are moving to a different space that feels better than what it did before. So gratitude is very, 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 very powerful. Now, I want to be very clear and make this connection, because this whole conversation is about igniting your true self. And your true self is the essence of who you were created to be. It is linear to true synergy, right? True synergy is I am healthy, I am happy, I am whole, purposeful, fulfilled, mind, body, spirit. So when I say true synergy, true self, those two are aligned. So how does this whole idea of gratitude being golden, how does this align with my true self? What does it even mean? Well, there's a couple of things that I would say to that. There's a level of abundance that comes with your essence, right? Your true identity of who you were created to be. Now, when I say abundance, I don't just mean as it pertains to money. I mean abundant energy, abundant use of time, abundant peace, joy, happiness, abundant relationships. When you think about that abundance, where gratitude comes into play is that it's almost like gratitude is the key that unlocks the door to that abundance. Okay. So your true self is connected to you being in the best spaces that you can possibly be in. When you use gratitude for those simple things, I've got some gas in my car. I've got a little bit of money in my pocket. And maybe if you don't have money in your pocket, maybe you have somebody that you can reach out to say, hey, I need some help. You've got friends. That's something to be grateful for. Or you might say, you know what? Maybe I don't have the money to do what I want to do, or what I want to do might not be a priority right now. But guess what? If I can stay in my home, I can be comfortable. I can be in my PJs. I can just have some chill time. I might want to go out, but maybe I can be in this place of peace and just be in this moment. That's a reason for gratitude. So that abundance starts to open up when we start to attach gratitude to the things that we go through on a daily basis. Okay. And the other part of how gratitude connects to your true self is that when we are grateful for those little things, then if there are other things that the Creator has for us that are bigger than those little things, then when we handle the little things in a way that suggests that we're grateful, we're thankful, I may not have the things, and I want to be very careful, because I don't want you to say, oh, it's all about material. Let me just say this. Sometimes material things are part of that abundance. But in spite of that, leading up to that, your abundance or your gratitude may just be associated with the fact that you have health and strength in your body, right? That you have soap and water to wash yourself, that you have food to eat, and you might not have all the things that you might want, but if you open up that cabinet, you open up that refrigerator, you're like, okay, I'm not going to go to bed hungry. That's a space of gratitude. So when we begin to focus on those small things, going back to tip number one, then the creator's like, okay, well, I see that you can handle those things well. And so when I want to add on to provide other little things and maybe bigger things, then you can handle it because you've already shown or expressed that you can handle the small things. Okay. So I want to be really clear about that because gratitude is something that's so simple. And it's often one of those things that we often just kind of ignore, right? Because, and I want to go back to, before we wrap up, I want to go back to something that Jaquista said in the comments. It's like, it's easy to get lost in the sauce. I get it. It's easy to go down the rabbit hole. But here's another tip that I'm going to give you is that when you feel yourself in that space, and you know it, you already know what that feels like. It's like, you're moving from one thing to the next. Sometimes you're confused about something. You're talking to people. You're working to the bone and trying to figure stuff out. And you're like, oh my gosh, it's lost in the sauce. When you feel yourself in that space, that is a perfect time to step back and say, you know what? Let me think about something that I could be grateful for. Let me think about either an experience, a feeling, a conversation with someone. I went out. Here's another thing, and this just happened this weekend. So on Saturday, and this might go back to the lost in the sauce conversation. So I want to draw the parallel. So on Saturday, I met a friend for lunch. This was earlier in the day. Left that, went to my son's school. He was planning a volleyball marathon with his friends. And then I had another friend who had a birthday party, or his mom had a birthday party. So that whole day I was like on the go. So the lost in the sauce piece is, oh my gosh, I've been gone all day long. I can't believe it. I've just got to go here, got to go there. And then you start to kind of get into that space. The gratitude place of that is, I had a wonderful lunch. It was a nice day. I drove in the sunshine, listening to my music. I got to all the places that I needed to go safely. I wasn't sure at the beginning of the week that I was even going to see my son's volleyball marathon. And I was just like, I want to make sure that I'm there because I want him to know that I'm supporting him. I got there maybe 30 minutes after it started, but I saw quite a bit of it. He knew that I was there. Gratitude. I'm like, thank you. I was able to actually see him and his friends play. And when that was over, I was a little bit tired. I went home, I changed my clothes and went to spend time with my friend and his family. And I was like, I was grateful because I laughed, I sang, I danced. We had good food, we had drinks, and it was just a wonderful time. Gratitude. So on my way home, I'm like, it's been a long day, yes. But I'm so grateful that I had the experiences that I had in order to bring some joy into my space, right? So that's a way to kind of look at how that might show up. So it's no coincidence that this is your topic today. This feels like maintenance after our work together. Yeah. Yeah. You're right. I appreciate that because and I get so excited sometimes when I just think about how certain things can be meaningful for people. And so sometimes we need maintenance is a good way to put it. Because we learn and we grow and I appreciate it. And since Jaquista posted that there, then I will say, yes, Jaquista and I have had the pleasure of working together on a one-on-one basis. And sometimes when you come through that process, life still happens and things still happen. And being able to come back and reconnect to ignite that spark so that you can keep moving to being your true self is something that warms my heart beyond what I can probably express in this short time that we have this evening. So I do appreciate you saying that. So as we wrap up, I'm going to say a couple things. I'm going to run through these tips really, really quickly. When we talk about why gratitude is golden, what are some things that you can do to incorporate it into your day? First of all, is to think about the simple things. Think about the simple things. It could be something, and I know we got to wrap up quickly, but I just want to say these few things. It could be something as simple as, let's say you're at work and you're walking down the hallway, okay? Maybe there's a coworker that you kind of butted heads with. Maybe your ideas cross, or maybe you seem like when you're having a conversation with this person or you're in a meeting, it seems like you're just not getting your ideas across one way or the other. Communication is just not, where you want it to be. And let's say that for a long time it really bothered you, how you just can't seem to work well with this person. It's almost like oil and water. And one day you're walking down the hall and you're walking toward this person, and in the past, in that same situation, maybe you would feel this angst, you would feel this nauseousness, like, oh my gosh, I'm getting ready to walk by this person, and I know we don't really see eye to eye, and I'm not even sure if this person's going to say anything to me. But one day in particular, when you start to make that walk, you realize that you don't feel that angst anymore. You realize that something has shifted, and you're walking by the person and you initiate and you speak and say hello first. And you keep moving and you feel okay. That's a moment of gratitude, because there's something different in how you are responding to your interaction, your relationship with that person. So gratitude can show up in so many different ways. And I could probably spend another hour, 2 hours, I could spend a whole month on what that might look like. But because we don't have a whole lot of time left in this episode, then I'm just going to park it there and move on to the reminder on the second tip. Okay. The second tip is to be intentional about expressing gratitude every day. So that's as simple as, when you wake up in the morning, before you go to bed in the evening, right? You might run up through all the things in your mind that happened through the course of the day. And I would either pick out the things that went well, or be intentional about saying something as simple as, you know what? I got home safely today. I was able to eat dinner, and now I've got a bed to sleep in. It might be just that simple, because you might be saying there's so many other things going on that I just need to hone in on these, and that's okay. Just find something. Okay, there's always something. The second option is to incorporate the gratitude jar, or it could be a bowl, it could be a box, whatever you choose, but it's an option. And it's as simple as cutting the slips of paper out, having them available. Something happens. Oh my gosh, I was able to solve this problem today, in the gratitude jar. Oh my goodness, I was able to pay my bill today. Write that down. Oh my goodness, I paid my bill on time today. That's gratitude. Write it down. So those are the kinds of things that you can use the gratitude jar for, and it just helps you to become intentional about practicing it on a regular basis. And then the last tip is to look for gratitude shifters in the challenging moments. Let me explain a shifter, because I don't know that I did that at the beginning. A shifter is something that does exactly that. It moves you from one feeling, one thought, one action that might not be in your best interest or the best interest of someone else, and it shifts you into a healthier, more positive space. Okay, so as I was explaining about the situation with the women's retreat, that shifter was recognizing that when I saw the environment, that it was more conducive to the number of people that had registered. So my mind shifted from, oh my goodness, look at how this turned out. So those shifters can definitely help you to hone in on finding the positive in situations that don't always feel so good. And I actually, I wrote that. That's one of the simple lines in the book. It's on page 79. Gratitude means finding the good in a situation, even if it doesn't feel good to you at the time. So just a reminder about that. We may not always have what we want, but there's a lot of gratitude to be had for having the things we need. That's spot on. I'm going to read it again in case somebody needs to hear it again or in case somebody misses it. We may not always have what we want, but there's a lot of gratitude to be had for having the things that we need. I couldn't have said it any better than that. And I think that's a great way to prepare to end tonight. So let me say this really quickly, that if you are interested in reading the chapter in the book, along with the other chapters, you can find Pathway to Purpose, find it, follow it, fulfill it on Amazon. It's a really a quick read, but I do believe that there are some things in this chapter as well as the other chapters that can really help you to begin to shift into this continual practice of gratitude. Again, Pathway to Purpose, find it, follow it, fulfill it is available on Amazon. And also, if you say to yourself, well, you know what? I've heard some things in this conversation tonight. I'm trying to figure out how to process it for myself. You know, this is a 30-minute, supposed to be shorter, but not there yet. Weekly conversation. I'm hearing the tidbits. I got a little bit of something that I think can motivate me to move toward my true self, but I just need to figure out, like, how does this specific situation, how do I do that in my circumstance? Then you can feel free to reach out to me at trusynergy.org. You can also find me on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube at Ericka Sallee, and then of course on Instagram at TruSynergy_. So with that being said, let me invite you to be part of next week's conversation. Now, in next week's show, we're going to be talking about my prioritization method. And I think, there's a whole lot of conversation that we've kind of talked about in terms of time and how to utilize it. And, there's so many things going to the hidden pictures piece. Like, I've got so much stuff. So how do I start to prioritize some things so that I can really figure out where to spend my time? So you'll want to be part of that conversation next week. I will say that if you are joining me on YouTube, then I do invite you to subscribe to the channel, share it, and then turn the notification bell on so that you are aware when new videos are uploaded. You can always go back to check out the replay of this and other shows in the Ignite Your True Self series on my YouTube channel. If you just go up to the live banner, once you go to the channel, you will see all of the shows listed there. So on that note, I do appreciate you joining me for tonight's conversation. I welcome you to come back and join me on next week. Next week, we will resume back to Thursday. So I not only invite you to be a part of the conversation, but I also invite you to share with your friends and with your family so that they can join the conversation too. And with that being said, I appreciate you joining me. I look forward to seeing you all again. Until I do, take care of yourselves, and yes, be well.